Can your personal sense of style actually help you more confidently go after your dreams? I tend to believe so, and I think that my guest today would have to agree. American handbag and accessories designer Sage Aubrey's motto is, "These bags won't change the world, but the women who wear them will." And she is leading by example. I can't wait for you to hear this interview. And just her story and her fashionable mission to educate girls worldwide. So let's dive in. So my guest today is making huge waves in the fashion industry, and she's doing so with her wicked sense of humor and even more fierce sense of style. My dear friend Sage Aubrey has created a label and a movement for women that I've never felt so connected to something in the fashion industry. Let me tell you a little bit about her company though. Sage Aubrey handbags are crafted in Florence, Italy. So that tells you a little something about the level of quality and craftsmanship that goes into each of the products. But Sage's deep appreciation for the industry, for design, for attention to detail are evident in every single thing that she makes, single thing that she does. And since her company's launch in 2015, Sage Aubrey has built a global distribution with large retailers, specialty stores. She has been on the arm of celebrities and fashion influencers, you name it. But let me tell you a little something about what immediately drew me to this fashionable powerhouse. It was her authentic AF personality. She tells it like it is, but she also has this true commitment to seeing other women rise. So thank you, my dear friend Sage, just for being here and for sharing a little bit of your wisdom and your sass with us on the podcast.
Okay, first of all, they should only believe 50% of what you just said.
Well, you are paying me. I mean, we should probably preface it with that.
Yeah, I mean, this is why we're friends, because I pay all my friends to say really nice things about me.
Exactly. Well, it's working. So when I first had the vision for the podcast, you were one of the first names that I put on a list of women who I was dying to interview, because when we first met, so we initially fell in love on Instagram, like most good love stories in modern day start. And immediately when we sat down in person and I got to hear your story, I knew that more women needed to hear it. And so I'm honored to have you on and share a little bit more about exactly what this crazy journey of yours has looked like. So take us back to before Sage Aubrey, the handbag line that we know it as now. What inspired you to start that business? What got you into fashion? Let's go back to the beginning so people can see your OG roots and what has led up to today.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me on. This is just it's the best thing. It's so funny. We're on Zoom and I just keep smiling at you because it's just, I'm like, oh my God, I have to pull it together here. Okay. So I've been in fashion since I was 15 years old. My mom's sister and I had an accessories company when I was in high school. I love of not fashion, but style, and this connection that I had to women started at a really young age for me, and developing relationships with women. And then also, I started to understand that when women connected, and this was I was just a teenager, that how much beauty came and happiness came from women coming together. So I think that was my first love of fashion, when I was selling a product, but at the end of the day, it was more about these women that I was invested in, you know what I mean? And same with them to my sister, my mom and I. So that was an incredible experience. And we literally built that business like a garage sale. We posted up signs on the end of our streets and put an arrow for people to come and visit us outside of our house with a table, just selling handbags. So we started from there. And then I graduated high school. I went to FIDM, the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising. I dropped out to go back home to university to get a college education. I left doing that to open my first boutique when I was 22 years old. So that was, it was really interesting. I convinced my parents. I was like, yeah, I shouldn't be sitting in the classroom. I need to like get out there and like, get on to like my journey basically. So they're like, okay, well, you have some money saved from the business in high school. So, basically here's your life savings that you have right now. If this is what you're willing to invest in, we'll support you. And they did. And my dad was like, I'll give you, it was in one of his shopping centers that he had in a really not great location. But he's like, if this is something you believe in, you've got to start somewhere. So, if you can make it, you can make it in a bad location. So I was like, all right, sounds like great advice. I had no idea what I was getting into. So long story short, I opened the doors on that business the day before Thanksgiving. I called every single client that was of our client from the handbag business when I was in high school. And I pretty much had instant success with that business. And I'm saying that humbly and honestly, because you'll hear my next story, which has not been instant success. So that was an incredible experience. That turned from one boutique to multiple boutiques to men's boutique to online shopping to pop-up shops before pop-up shops were ever really a thing here in the Valley. So yeah, that was kind of everything up until the economy crashed. And that was a really big eye-opener for me as far as like being a business owner, because basically I lost 60% of my business within like 6 months time. I had a lot of money out on rents. Like I had a lot of responsibility as like a really young woman, So I learned a lot about going through hard times and making hard decisions and also pivots, So I had this vision when I was younger about how I was going to get onto the other side of the business. And that was obviously having all these retail stores and then selling them off and investing in the company. And it didn't happen like that. But I believe what did happen now looking back happened for a reason. So I ended up making the decision to close the door on the retail business, and I got married 3 weeks later, and my husband and I got back from our honeymoon, and he got an opportunity to move to Malaysia, to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia for a job opportunity. So I needed something new and just something to reinvigorate myself and just get out of this kind of rut that I was starting to like get into. So I was like, yeah, let's move to Kuala Lumpur. That sounds like a brilliant idea. And so the next thing you knew, we're on flight to KL, and we arrive in KL, and we're there for the first couple of weeks, and I started to twiddle my thumbs, which is not healthy for me, like whatsoever. And I looked at my husband, I was like, I got to go do something to like find inspiration or figure out something to do, because this is not good for me. I went from like working 7 days a week to running all these like stores and everything else I was doing to doing like literally nothing. So I went to the bookstore one day looking for inspiration. I picked up a book called it's called Half the Sky, Turning Women's Oppression into Opportunity. And I read the book and I was so empowered, like sad, distressed about what I had read and the accounts of these women's lives in the book. And it goes through different accounts of sex trafficking and intergenerational prostitution and really heavy issues that exist against women and girls globally. And I basically threw the book at my husband. I was like, you have to read this because I'm going to do something. Like, this is my new passion. Like, this is what I've got to go and invest myself and my time in. He was like, absolutely. So he read over the book and he was like, if this is what you want to invest your time in, then I'm 100% behind it. I ended up writing all the founders in the book, and one specific founder got back to me straight away. And I just told her my interest in learning more about what she did, and her specific action centers are in across India. And so she invited my husband and I to come out to her action centers. And so long story short, I ended up going on like a 2-year philanthropic hiatus. And it's an important part of my journey, because I believe that if it wasn't for the women that I met and the strength that I recognized in these women and these stories that sit within me, I probably would have quit Sage Aubrey a long time ago. But I've always had this greater purpose of getting back to my philanthropic roots and getting back to educating women and girls and uplifting women, not only here domestically, but internationally. And so with that being said, I got really, I don't want to like dive too deep into what I kind of got into, but eventually ended up sitting on incredible panels discussing the issues that exist against women and girls globally. And so my efforts kind of escalated really quickly. And I also feel like in doing that, I kind of got off course with exactly what I wanted to do. All of a sudden, I got invested into this very bureaucratic world of philanthropy. And I think I got away from who I was authentically. And I'm a creative, and I've always been in the fashion industry. And so unfortunately, it came to an end, but fortunately. So my husband and I ended up moving back to the US in 2012. And this is where I took a left turn and kind of started to get back into the fashion industry. And so in 2012, I came back to Phoenix and I was like, okay, how am I going to get back to who I am as a woman? How can I build a company that will allow me to financially sustain my global efforts for women and girls? Like, what can I do? And so my husband and I started throwing ideas around. And one day I was reading a magazine, and it was highlighting Rebecca Minkoff's story and her story into launching her brand. And so I feel like she really humanized kind of this normal, what seemed like a normal girl, doing something extraordinary in the fashion industry. So I basically looked at that and once again kind of threw the magazine at my husband, and I was like, if she can do it, I can do it. And that really started my journey in mid 2012 to like go out there and kick some ass and figure out how I was going to sample some bags and get into this industry. And as I mentioned before, I really thought it was going to be like an instant success, like my first business was, because I was like, if I did it the first time, I could do it over the second time. And this industry has taught me a lot, and it's been really, really humbling. It's been incredible. I've gone through really, really difficult times, which we'll go on to discuss about getting into this manufacturing world and breaking into Italy and launching a collection, and all of the trials and tribulations that come with that.
Yeah, that was really what I wanted to have you touch on next, because it can often seem, I think we're all guilty of this, seeing a woman's story play out, the highlight reel of it on social media or what have you, and not know the layers upon layers of what she had to go through in order to get to that point. And just knowing a little bit more about your story, specifically within the manufacturing industry and all of these family-run businesses that it's nearly impossible to get your foot into, but you knew the level of quality that your line demanded. So share a little bit about some of those early struggles and just how relentless you had to be in order to make this vision of yours a reality.
Yeah, I first originally wanted to launch my product, and I wanted it to be American made. And as I started working with manufacturers between Los Angeles and New York, I very quickly began to realize that the capability of what I needed for the structure and the sophistication and the fine details of what my bag, what it takes to actually handcraft this bag with, it takes real, true artisans. And so it's not, and I mean, just sewing my bag takes 3 different styles of sewing machines. And most people are not equipped with all of this very sort of like luxury type of manufacturing, not only skills, but also like hardware to do all of this. So, and I obviously didn't know any of that. That was all a part of the journey, but I'll never forget. I started with my first manufacturer in LA. And this gentleman was an Italian Iranian. And I walk in there and I'm so fresh and green. I had no idea how to make samples. I didn't know what I had to do, like, period. I figured I'd just walk into a place. Like I said, I figured I'd just get a bag made and bam, I'd be like this amazing, well-known, globally recognized brand. It doesn't happen like that at all, unfortunately. But so I walk into this first meeting and I'm explaining to this guy, and I have these little like kind of pictures of like what I'm thinking I wanted. So I'm going through like 7 different pictures. And I'm like, it's kind of like this, but it's a little bit more like that. And it's kind of like this. Do you get it? Are you getting it? Like, it's kind of like more so like this, but it could be kind of like that. And he's just looking at me like, what the F is this girl talking about? Like, she's nuts. And so he obviously did not believe in what I was doing. And so after me trying to explain this for 17 minutes and his jaw just dropping in pure disgust with me, I was like, so is this good? Like, is this something that like we can work with here? And he's like, it's shit. I was like, it's what? And he's like, it's shit. And I was like, shit, like the shit, or like this is just like shit. And my husband was like looking at me like, she doesn't know what the hell she's doing. Like, what is going on? So he's like, it's shit. Like basically in Italian accent, he was like, you suck. And he like pushed his like pictures, my like pictures that I was trying to explain for 17 minutes away from me. So this was like my first kind of deep dive into this industry, and stories like that were so common. And so, you know, I speak to a lot of other designers, and some of them have the same issues and some of them didn't. But for me, I think I was so green and I was so naive and I didn't know what to expect, that I think a lot of people took me for a fool. I remember looking back at the guy, and we got into a yelling match because I'm really nice, but I also like will start yelling at people if they don't like give me what I want, basically, but not in a bad way, like in a good way, where I'm like, you need to like support me. You need to understand that I don't know what I'm doing right now, but I'll work harder than anyone you've ever met in your life. You just need to teach me the principles, and like teach me the principles, and I will show you that I can do this. And he was just like, whatever. So then he told his assistant in like Iranian, in Arabic or whatever they were speaking, that they needed to go get me an invoice and show me the invoice. So he showed me this ridiculous invoice for like $10,000 to make like 2 samples. And we were like, no, that's not really going to work out, dude. But anyhow, so I tell this story for one, because I want people to know how naive and green I was, and you don't have to start knowing everything. You know, imperfection is a really great thing, and going into anything naively sometimes is a really beautiful thing. I think not being an insider in fashion is actually working to my benefit. I didn't know that in the beginning, but I'm starting to understand that now. So, going on from LA, I go to New York, and I had a very similar experience in New York. I ended up in the Dominican. Basically, they all asked me why I was sampling, basically told me I should just be traveling with my husband. They were willing to give me no help. I mean, I literally had to learn a 90-degree angle, like grasping onto anything I could in an industry that was willing not to help me. They wanted to see me fail. I truly believe that the people at my first manufacturing facility where I did my first production run, I think they were just waiting to see me give up. And what's also very interesting about that story, there's 2 silver linings. One, if I hadn't gone through all these terrible experiences and people not helping me, and also there's 3. Okay, there's 3. So the women that I met when I was doing all of my philanthropic work, I kept thinking about them and the struggle that they go through every single day. And I was like, if they were given what I've been given, there would be no way they wouldn't succeed. So I would think about that every single time someone was bad to me or mean to me or didn't believe in me, or those are the women, those stories, their eyes, they sit with me. So I was like, if I ever gave up, I'm giving up on these women, and I'll never do it. And I think that's what makes me fight every single day for what I do. The second, if I hadn't gone through that situation, I wouldn't understand how hard I have to work for everything I have today. In order to prove how much I wanted to be at that facility and producing, I was with the workers of the facility sweeping when I wasn't working. I was there before the workers got there, and I was there after the workers got there. I was working 13-hour days every day, 7 days a week, like to the point where the manufacturer owner and everyone in there was like, they were like, this woman's a stray cat. You know, they would tell me like, she's got to fucking leave. Like, she's just psycho. Because they would be like, you need to leave. You need to go home. And I was like, no, my samples aren't perfect yet. No, my production isn't right. If I leave here and if something falls off, it's my investment. This is my money. Like, I had, you know, my husband and I had fallen on hard times. So like what we had invested in this company was what I had, you know what I mean? So it meant a lot to me. And so I think because of my work ethic and because of my kindness and because of my willingness to just want to be really good, I believe some angels have come in for me throughout this journey. One of them was a gentleman that I met at the facility that was like, Sage, you're killing yourself here and you're never going to get the quality that you need. And I was like, well, that's great. But I'm trying to make it work here and I have no contacts. I can't get into Italy. No one responds to emails. No one responds to phone calls. Like, it's just not working. And so this gentleman, out of the kindness of his heart, he was like, and just his belief in what I was doing and just my work ethic, I really believe, he just looked at me and he was like, this girl needs a freaking break. Like, someone's got to throw her a bone, you know? So he went home from that trip because he was working with one of the other brands that they were producing in the facility. And he reached out to his Italian contacts and he made contacts for me into Italy. And he's the reason why a door was open for me in Italy. And he opened the door and I walked straight the fuck in because I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to make this work. So I basically got home from that facility. Another story, because I just want people to know if they're creating products, tragic things happen, and they happened to me. The facility that I was working in packed my bags in such cheap boxes that when they had shipped it on freight and it landed at my doorstep, something fell on my bags during freight and they were smashed completely. Like, big bags in boxes were like this big. So then 3 weeks later after that, after I made the contacts with Italy, I brought these smashed bags to Italy. Like, I've always been in these situations where I've always had to feel like I've had to work twice as hard as everyone else to prove something. You know, like when I go to Italy, I don't even have samples at that time. I had smash bags. I was like, this is kind of like what my bag is supposed to look like, but it's like the smash version. You know, so
it's your imagination.
Yeah, like, and they were like, what the fuck? And initially they were like, no, we don't want to work with you. Like, no. But what happened was, again, I had this angel circumstance happen where the manufacturer owner's daughter took a liking to me. You know, she was like a few years older than myself. And she was like, well, Dad, if you're not going to help her, I want to help her. And so she was somebody that's, you know, she talked her dad into investing time in me. And they don't want to do that because I had no distribution. I didn't protege with anybody. I didn't come from some family that knows somebody that knows somebody. And they know that 99.9% of fashion companies fail. So they don't like to invest time or energy into these emerging designers. So I got really lucky. And I'm trying not to be too wordy, but it's a long story and it hasn't been easy. It's been this entanglement of difficulty all the way through. So I started off in Italy. I started sampling in early 2015. I launched my first sample collection, the Italian made collection, in late 2015. And then in 2016, spring of 2016, we were found by the fashion director of Bloomingdale's Middle East. And we actually launched in-store with them in SS17. And this is really what kicked off my career. So once again, I had another angel kind of come into my life and find my brand and invite me to come out and show my samples to them. And once again, I did. So, you know, I had all these pitfalls and all these hard times, but then looking back at it, I had all these really strokes of luck. Well, and I think that happens because of hard work, and I think it happens because of kindness, and I just think it's all embodied in like one. And this determination to, no matter how many people told me I was going to fail, and people still tell me this. I mean, people still are like, oh, good luck. You know, it's a really difficult industry. And it's like, okay, like, I'll still be here, you know?
And I love how you perfectly captured, what is that saying? That luck is really the combination of preparedness meets opportunity. So you were prepared when the opportunities came along, when the right people were put in your path. And I think there's such a lesson there for anyone, man, woman alike, who is chasing after a big dream, because oftentimes we're going to be tested in the process. We're going to be tested. We're going to have to grow into the person that can handle the level of success we're really after, and not to shy away from those obstacles when they come. And that's, every time I hear your story, what I take away from it. I'm just getting it to a whole new level today, because you are just the definition of relentless. And it shows in everything that you do, and now in the ways that you're starting to disrupt this industry that you've cracked into. So talk a little bit about where you're positioning your brand within the industry, because you tried it one way, and you've done the retail, you've done the getting on the arm of these fashion bloggers and people of that nature, but you're finding your people elsewhere. So talk a little bit about that.
This industry is so interesting. It's very difficult. It's very overcrowded, and it's highly competitive. We retail on some of the largest retailers in the world, and you can get lost really quickly on those shelves. But also, I think what people are starting to realize, and the disconnect between why I think the fashion industry is kind of imploding, and why all these like unique niche, like very tribal community driven brands are starting to do incredible things in my industry. I think it's because women want to support something they feel genuinely a part of. As I've gone into this journey, and I did it the way everyone wanted me to, I built this wholesale distribution, and we're sold in these glossy stores and but I was like, I'm missing something. I'm missing the connection with women, which I thrive on. And I am so invested in women that I need to be around them. Like, it's not like I don't want them to just feel like they buy a bag and then they're not a part of like something that's really beautiful stirring up together. I also don't want women supporting me that I can't directly support either. So I'm always trying to find ways that I can support other women in my community or make introductions for them, because it's so important. Even like, okay, so I won't get too far caught off on other things, but I'll stay focused. But so my big thing is like, I started to realize that my company's slogan now is better quality, zero intimidation. And all I care about today is driving and giving women exactly what this industry is telling everyone women don't want. And so I have a methodology in the way that I think when everyone's zigging, I zag. And it's the same thing that I did on my Instagram. It's how I built the community that I built today. I've been really authentic in this journey from day one with my struggles, with, everything looks glossy and like I have these great retailers, but for me, not feeling like I'm totally connected to what I do has been a problem for me. So I was selected to be a part of this mentorship program with the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York. And I've been fortunate to sit around some incredible mentors that I've pitched basically these ideas of what I want to do with my brand. And some of them are like, no, you need to build fashion typical. But my personal mentor is like, this is what you need to do, Sage. Like, you need to connect with women. This is what you're born and bred to do. So this is how you need to like reinvigorate your company, which kind of brings me to why I'm starting these style events that I'm doing currently.
We are about to do. And I am so excited to get into this. I actually want to preface it by
answer your question. I get so freaking off topic, but okay.
No, but it's all part of this beautiful story that there is so much gold in, because I can just speak for myself. One of the challenges I've had to overcome is being an entrepreneur, a new entrepreneur. There's no playbook. And if you try to follow the same path that everyone else ahead of you has followed, you're going to end up in the same place. And what I love about you, what I've always been inspired by from your story, is your willingness to buck the trends. And this latest, I would say, evolution, the next level of Sage Aubrey is really a beautiful representation of that. And it all started by one of the things that had me fall in love with you, which if you don't already follow Sage on Instagram, what are you doing with your life? You must. It's the Sage Aubrey on Instagram. And you, for the last little while that I've known you, have always done little snippets that you like to call style snacks. So tell us a little bit about what Style Snacks is, how you thought that up, and then we'll talk about now how you're going to expand it to a Style Snacks event, which I literally cannot wait for.
By the way, it's snacks with an X. because
Very
it cannot be.
important distinction.
Yeah,
Yes.
very important distinction because it's not like it's the cool snacks.
Be cool.
Okay, well, first of all, it was so funny because when I was in New York and speaking with my mentor, and I had all these ideas going about like this kind of event that I wanted to start. And it's interesting how you were the first person who popped in my head. I was like, I need to talk to Lindsay. And I texted you, I was like, when I get home, I need to meet you. Like, it is so important. And so I think sometimes, like, once again, you have these people who come into your life that inspire you. And I always think people come in at just right particular timing. It's so interesting how we came into each other's life and how you're such a huge part of this journey now, and someone who I just had to talk to, and then you're like, yeah, you have to do this. So anyhow, I will talk about snacks. I have no idea how the F snack started. Like, literally, I think I was on Instagram one day, and I always have these weird little quirky fashion things that I talk about, like dropping sunnies or front tucking or turning your sweater backwards or whatever I'm doing of that day. And these little like tips and tricks that I have that are like funny, but they're legit. You know, they're like legit style trends that, or just wardrobe things that you need to do that most people just don't even know to do. And so I started putting them on Instagram, and it became like, I should just stop selling bags and just do style snacks all day long. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those things that has just become something incredible that people love and they enjoy. And I think because it's funny, it's not too serious. And I think that's the great thing about, you know, what I do is that I love to break down women's barriers and the barriers to this industry that freak women out. But then I feel like if they look at me and they're like, Sage is so freaking nuts. Like, we can like this industry because at least she's nuts like I'm nuts, you know? So I really try to just put my whole self out there so people don't feel intimidated by this industry anymore, because that just really pisses me off. But anyhow, these quirky little things have now turned into something, and they are turning into something incredible. I started to look around the interwebs, and I was like, no one does style events. I'm like, no one does anything for style. And in a way that's like uplifting, not like a fashion show or not like a meet and greet thing, like an actual thing. And not just like where people are standing there in models and like fashionable clothes, like where we actually select 3 women who come to the event, we style them, and we really walk through whether it's insecurities that this woman has and how we resurrected this insecurity, whether it's just these fun style tips that I have, how to incorporate trends into wardrobes and do it something that's really fun, like a fun presentation, and also where it involves a Q&A, you know, where people can directly just ask questions. Because here's the deal. Women, we all want to be stylish, but we're freaked out by this industry. And second, we don't really want to like pay for a stylist at the same time going to have to buy clothes. So it's like, how can I create a style event where it could be like a really cool shopping thing where we can have sips and we can have snacks and we can like go over trends and we can figure out how to incorporate these really cool tips into our wardrobe the next time we go shopping or when we're curating our wardrobe or whatever. So I think it's going to be so fun. And the great part about it is that it's not superficial. And we're bringing a woman like yourself, Miss Lindsay Schwartz, Powerhouse Woman, to really bring depth and wellness, like mental wellness, to the beauty of this event. And we're also teaming up with local stylists. And the one that we're doing in Arizona is with Reese Consulting. And she's been wardrobe consulting for 15 years. And she has a really beautiful story as to why she got into style after a really tragic car accident. So I feel like her story is just really touching, and it needs to be told. And it's just going to be full of fun laughs because we're all kind of nuts.
We are going to have a great time. The 3 of us will have a great time. So that's really all you need to know. You'll probably have a great time by default, just being around us.
Absolutely.
Oh, well, and I'm so glad that you're doing this event because I know I've shared with you and I've shared little snippets on my Instagram and things like that. I'll probably do a podcast on it at some point, how big a role my personal style has played in me stepping into all the big things that I am now doing. And it went back as far as when I had just finished writing the book. I had had such a big personal transformation on the inside that I started to feel like the outside didn't match. And I think that's something that's more common than women are even realizing, that we're always evolving as human beings. And sometimes life gets so busy, whether we're moms or business owners or busy professionals, and we're not necessarily taking the time. I think it even goes to the level of self-care to look at, is my style representative of this kind of woman that I am becoming, this woman that I want to put out into the, introduce to the world, and the one who represents the ultimate potential within me, which I love how you call a next level woman. I think that's just so good. And style plays such a big role in that. So I'm excited at the event that we're doing here in Phoenix to get to share a little bit of that story. And I think it goes to style beyond the outside, the aesthetic, because style is a powerful tool to help you tap in and bring out the potential that's within all of us. And she's there. I always say, if you are resonating with something in another woman, if you see Sage and you just resonate with her power and her ability to be totally authentic, that means that potential is within you too. And I love to use style as just one of the ways that I bring that out in myself. And you're going to speak to that. Risa is going to speak to that. It's going to be such a fun night.
It's going to be so good. And I think that, style is the only thing you can't purchase. It's something that's like, it's a soulful thing. It's an emotional thing. It's a personal thing. And I think that this industry has kind of tarnished it and making women feel like it's superficial, like you're either fashion and you're superficial, or you're just like dowdy and whatever the F you are, But that's like the big thing, is that I just want to help women curate this style, and realize that it's not a label thing. It's not a trend driven thing. It's just really, it's who you are. And the more you become connected with yourself and you dress for this part or this brand or whoever you're becoming, and understanding that it's wardrobing your life. You know what I mean? So I'm just really genuinely excited to start helping women on this journey of being mindful about it. So I think that's really exciting.
It's going to be so fun, and stay tuned for more, because I feel like this is the start of something. This event that we're doing here in Phoenix in April is really the start of something much bigger that you're going to do with the brand. And I think it ties into your bigger mission and your tagline that I love so much, where you say, these bags won't change the world, but the women who wear them are. So talk to me a little bit about how you're leading the charge in that mission and your goal to donate 1,000 backpacks and school supplies for girls worldwide. I think it really ties it back to the story you were sharing earlier. But will you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, when I started this journey, I came in on a totally different purpose. Starting this handbag line wasn't an ego-driven thing. It was the way that I looked at being able to build a company to be able to uplift. And I think my job as a woman-owned company is to uplift women, and not just women every day through style and fashion, but through women who are less opportunistic. I want to get back to being philanthropic. I want to get back to uplifting women and girls. And I could continue to keep putting it off because I'm afraid, I'm afraid to make that big commitment. But I was like, if I just make a commitment that I can donate 1,000 backpacks and school supplies, and I announce it and I start talking about it, then I'll make it happen. And so I decided at the beginning of 2019 that I was going to get back to my philanthropic roots, and that this year my big goal is to donate 1,000 backpacks and school supplies to underserved girls domestically and internationally. And so that's the next big step that I'm making for the brand, but also just getting back to who I am as a woman and the purpose that I want to serve and my greater purpose. And I figured that I need to start talking about it, because then it's just going to put all of it into action, because I used to just work so behind the scenes, and I'm like, now I'm like, people need to know what I do. You know what I mean? Like before I used to not really ever talk about it, but I'm like, I need to start talking about it because I will talk it into action. And every woman that's a part of this brand, this is what we do together. You know what I mean? Like this is not like a 1-for-1 thing, but this is just what we're going to turn into something incredible. And so I want women to also know that come in to be a part of this brand. It's just a part of who we are. You know, when you're a part of this brand, it's just what we do as women. And so when you support a woman-owned business, I think it's our job to just constantly be uplifting everyone around us. So those are my ultimate goals. That's my big one for the year.
I could not love that more. And I also could not love you more. I am pretty sure of it. But every time we have a chance to spend time together and I hear your story and your heart, somehow I find myself loving you even more and just being more inspired by the woman that you are, the mission that you have. And I can't wait to share your story and everything that you're doing with more and more women. And this platform will be one fun way to do that. But another platform, I've actually not announced this anywhere. So this is sort of like super duper sneak peek. You're an insider for listening to the podcast.
Oh my God.
Know that Sage is actually going to be one of the speakers at Powerhouse Women 2019. So more info on that coming soon. But if you loved what you heard here and you want more of her energy, obviously, come hang out with us September 7th in Phoenix, Arizona. And you can find all the details for that at powerhousewomen.co/event. All the details are there, but there's going to be a rock star lineup of women. And for those of you who resonate with that feeling she described, being in the beginning of your journey and feeling like you just keep hearing no and doors are being shut in your face, one of the most powerful things you can do is put yourself in a room with other women who are on the journey with you. Because if you've met Sage in person, if you've met me in person, you know that we mean it when we say we are open books. We are always here to share anything from our journey that will help you along the way in yours. And we would love to see you in Phoenix in September. And I can't wait to have everyone just get to hear and feel even more of your story and your heart, because it's going to be pretty incredible.
I'm so excited. Honestly, I'm so excited. I'm honored. Any chance that I get to, really quick, these sort of women's groups and networking groups, just for anybody who's listening, I believe they changed my life. I believe they changed the course of my business. So everyone comes to these events for different purposes, but you would be so surprised on what you can take out of a situation when you're surrounded by so much empowerment. And I think that if people take it seriously and they come in and they really want to dive deep and find incredible tips and talk to these women and use the resources. You know what I mean? Like if you go to these events, really take something out of it. Meet as many people as you can, because had I not gone to events like the Powerhouse Woman, I wouldn't be sitting in front of you right now. We wouldn't be doing style snacks. All of these things that we put into action are because we go out there and we turn things around for ourselves. And so that's what I'm excited to be a part of Powerhouse, because I love the ability of what you're giving women the ability to actually do and create in their lives. I think it's absolutely amazing.
Well, I couldn't have said it better myself. And I know my life has been changed by attending events. That's one of the reasons, one of the inspirations behind why we started Powerhouse Women. And we have some work to do, you and me, sister. We're going to be shaking things up this year. And anyone who wants to be a part of that journey with us is welcome to come along for the ride. So thank you so much for being here today and sharing your heart and your story with the listeners. I appreciate you so much.